Now, we've got our intergenerational panel, and this is where we all get a chance to see some of our absolute heroes up on stage. The first person I'm going to ask you to welcome is Baroness Heyhoe-Flint. She was England's Women's World Cup cricket captain from 1966 to 1978, unbeaten in 6 tests, led England to the inaugural Women's Cricket World Cup in 1973. She hit the first 6 in a women's cricket match versus Australia at the Oval in 1963 and was a crucial figure in the MCC, overturning a 200-year policy to ban women. She's a life peer, Wolves director and a journalist. Please welcome Baroness Rachel Heyhoe-Flint. I think we should go on. Can you get up? All right.
Yeah, all right.
You're teeny tiny.
I know.
I can't believe how teeny tiny she is.
I'm the older generation, in case you didn't know about it.
But you're also mini.
I know, little things come in good packages.
Yeah, can you get up on there?
Or is it the other? No, I can't get it. Anybody want to give me a leg up? Or a leg, not a leg over, I said.
It is a bit high. Or just lean on. Oh,
I shall lean on it.
Lean on it. It is actually a bit.
I'm good.
Jenny would help you up. No, it really is a bit. She's got a little.
You see, if I'd been allowed to wear my stiletto heels, that's nice.
Yeah. Right. Well, marvellous. I haven't thought about how I'm going to get on mine yet, but anyway. Next, we have Lizzy Yarnold, Britain's most celebrated archers fan, who made history by winning every major title in skeleton in just 407 days. She's the reigning Olympic, World and European champion and winner of the overall World Cup title in 2014. She brought the country to a standstill when she won her Olympic gold medal in Sochi. Please welcome Lizzy Yarnold. That way. Oh, she's I think the stools are going, aren't they? We're going to have chairs. Well done. Right, okay. I bet you could probably have leapt up onto, athletic people and all that. Next we have Nicole Cooke, who's the former World Olympic and Commonwealth road racing champion. She was the first cyclist, male or female, to become world champion and Olympic gold medalist in the same year, 2008. She's a scourge of the cycling drug cheats and author of the fiercely honest, award-winning autobiography, Breakaway. Nicole retired in January 2013 and is now a formidable campaigner for equality in women's sport. Please welcome Nicole up to the stage. You can get on it. Oh, we're all going to be little. The next person I'm going to welcome up to the stage could probably lift all of us onto the in one go, because it's Mercy Brown, who's Britain's weightlifting's newest talent. She's British champion and record holder in her weight category for the clean and jerk, the snatch and the combined. She competed in the Commonwealth Games for England in 2014 and is the proud holder of 30 national records. Her priority is to represent GB in the Olympics in Rio and then to go on to even greater success in Tokyo 2020. Please welcome Mercy Brown. So I haven't got a little stool, so I'll sit up on the... Shall I go on the high... Yeah, I'll be up. No, this is good. I'll be up. Oh, no, I won't. Will I or not? Yes. Right, yeah. I'm never taller than anybody. This is fantastic. There's no need to laugh that loudly. Right, now we've got a few topics that I wanted to cover with all of you, but the first topic I wanted to talk about was role models, because we sort of all know how crucially important they are. And I wanted to start with Rachel, because I wanted to know, did you have any, all those years ago, did you have any role models?
Well, they tended to be from the men's game, because nobody knew anything about women's cricket. I mean, I was interviewed once by a woman's page editor from the Daily Express, because, they never sent sports writers along, and she said, could you tell me your vital statistics to prove that you're normal? And I thought, well, she wouldn't say this to anybody. So we were a completely unknown factor. And so my heroes were people like Gary Sobers, Colin Cowdrey. If you're looking for a role model who knows how to behave in cricket, I think Colin Cowdrey might fit that bill, unlike a certain gentleman at the moment who's... I think there is a make of nuts named after him, isn't there, actually? Is that right? Yes.
I think we all know who you mean. Lizzy, who were your role models?
I think I was really lucky, actually. By the time that I got involved in skeleton, I'd been doing sport for quite a long time. I loved heptathlon. I wanted to be Denise Lewis. I wasn't good enough. But, you know, then I got into the gym and started doing a lot of more javelin and shot put. And I was in the gym in Lee Valley, and I used to see Goldie Sayers every day. She was my everyday role model, just her mentality and determination. Then there was Maggie, who I used to try and emulate in the gym. I'd never admit it to her. There you are, oh God. You know, so, you know, there's lots of different types of role models. The big role models were Denise Lewis. She caught me just at the time when I thought that the Olympics could be possible. And then as I was growing up, I was really lucky to be surrounded by those super professional athletes.
And Nicole?
Yes, for me, when I was a kid, I'd watched the Tour de France on TV, and at the time Robert Miller was the only British cyclist that was in the race and was attacking on the mountains, and so I think that was very inspirational for me. I wanted to be a climber, I wanted to be attacking in the Tour de France, so that's really what sparked me to want to race. And then more closer to home in Cardiff, I met Louise Jones and Sally Hodge, who were a generation older than me, and Louise Jones was a gold medalist in the Commonwealth Games on the track in cycling. And just speaking to those riders that had raced internationally, Sally Hodge had gone to the Barcelona Olympics, and just to hear that it is hard work, it's getting out there, it's doing the training, there are no shortcuts, that was a very key message to me as well at a young age.
And Mercy, you're the baby of the group. So who are your role models?
Within the sport, it was Zoe, because at the time she was, still is, one of the best weightlifters about, and it's just like, you would like to be the best and be just like her and be at the top of your game and undefeated. So she was the in-sport role model, and she still is. I've never told her, we hang out and everything, but I don't go, you're my role model, because that would make everything a bit awkward. But outside of weightlifting would be Perry Shake Straighten, because we're from East London, and like she's just a lovely girl. Her achievements are fantastic, and to come out of the same area and achieve, like, going to on to achieve what she's achieved would be absolutely great. So I look up to her as well.
See, I think it's interesting is what you're saying is how important it is to have those role models, which Rachel, you didn't have any women to look to. You could only, well, no, you had to become everybody's role model without anybody to follow. But I think from listening to what Mercy's saying is how crucial it is that when you see people achieving, you think, oh, I could do that. You know, you saw Denise Lewis and thought, I'd like to be that, when it turned out to be something else. But at least you had a role model or somebody to look to strive to, and now you are those role models.
You need the PR, the publicity, the media around that, because we just never got any column inches. I remember when I first captained England and we were playing New Zealand at Scarborough, not on the beach, I hasten to add, it was a proper cricket ground, and I scored a century, and the next morning I went out and, in my usual shy, modest way, bought all the Sunday newspapers to, it cost me a fortune, it did, we amateurs who weren't paid for playing, and I couldn't find any mention of, oh yeah, I thought that as well. In fact, there was just one little mini sort of 17-point line underneath the bowls column, because I think they thought we still bowled underarm or something like that. But, so if you can get the media exposure and the profile lifted, then you know and can identify them.
Obviously it takes the media to make the role models, otherwise you're doing your enormous success to nobody. But before we move on to media, which we will talk about, I think Sue is somewhere in, yes, with your roving microphone and a role model.
I'd like to speak, well, pounce on somebody really that we all know, needs no introduction, and that's Christina Hurrigu, because you are such a role model to women now. Is that always in your mind?
I think because I'm an elite athlete now, I know that everything I'm doing is being monitored and watched, especially when they're primary schools that come to use a track or my training. And it's really important to me that I show that I'm working really, really hard and I'm enjoying myself, I'm enjoying my sport, because I think if people say that you're enjoying your sport, then they want to join in. If you look really miserable then, or look like it's too painful, you know, they don't really, not really interested. But it's not really something you think about, but I think if we can just focus on raising our game and then showing people that to be a professional athlete, we have to do the best that we can, and you know, whether we win or lose or draw, we do it well and we do it gracefully, and I think that's probably the best thing we can do.
Meanwhile, just checking up on you, have you had a glass of wine yet? No. Oh, well, brilliant. The role model thing is working here. Back to you, Alice.
Thanks. Well, which, as Rachel was saying, you cannot have role models if they're not represented in the media, if nobody sees them, if no one knows who they are. They would have to be a very personal role model at your own track or whatever. So bringing us on to the subject of the media, which I think has probably changed, Rachel, somewhat since. And so let's go to our youngest panel member and ask Mercy, what's your experience, Mercy, of media so far?
It's okay. It's not widely covered per se. There's not much out there, especially weightlifting wise. There's not much. You won't know much about it unless you're actually a fan or something, or unless someone does something really big. Like Zoe made the headlines when she got her gold medal, but no one else knows about when we go out to world championships or when we go out to seniors. So I think media representation is so important. So.
And yeah, Nicole, sort of your experience in cycling, which has a bigger media profile probably, but not necessarily for women in road races.
Yeah, I think I probably saw cycling come from a Cinderella sport, which it was, through to now being probably one of the most prominent sports in Britain at the moment. And I remember winning my first World Cup in Holland, and my brother's local junior race got more coverage in the national paper. We're not talking local papers, but in the national broadsheets. My brother's third place, and it was almost like there was just at the time men's international, men's national, men's local, anything else. And I don't know what was going on through like the editors' heads at the time, but there was no appreciation of what they were actually sort of comparing there. So I now seen the big boom in cycling, and now there are specific cycling journalists covering the races. But I think there's a very interesting link between a lot of the teams and the riders and the journalists, because the Lance Armstrong scandal was one of the biggest probably events of recent years in cycling, and the treatment of David Walsh, who actually stood up and said that something isn't right here. He got blackballed and pretty much marginalised, and the message was, you've got to say the Lance Armstrong story. And so there is a very unusual relationship between who has the power within that media relationship in cycling.
But Lizzy, we're talking about the Olympics, I think, has a different media profile probably than almost anything else in terms of women and sport and different sports. I mean, I presume, not to be rude, but I think if skeleton wasn't in the Olympics, we might not have heard, and yet you get a gold medal. Presumably everything went mad for you then.
It did. I was off of social media for about 3 days before the games, and when I went back on social media, I was, astounded by it. And it's quite a romantic thought to think you've got 1,000 retweets or, lots of followers. It's romantic to think, our presence has been increased, but that's not real media. The real media is the news, is the TV, getting it on paper. That's what's important. And I don't feel as though, when I'm checking my apps and it's guy, I don't want to take it away from them. It's not like I'm reducing the men's coverage to increase the women's. There's a whole new market that's just untapped. But from the skeleton point of view, it's so equal in our sport. It's fantastic. Those who are successful have the coverage, and the women are so successful in winter sports, and Jenny is here as well, and you know, we did get so much coverage because we were there, and we were there to perform. So from my side of it, the Olympics was it was outstanding, and it's nice to not have to explain skeleton every time, which I know that's how I'm breaking through.
Yeah. And did any of you ever have any media training or advice about how to deal with the media at all?
I actually became a journalist because I thought, I failed English language 3 times and then became a journalist, but so there's hope for all of you out there, yes. But I just felt that because we weren't getting any coverage, I started freelancing, and then before we went on tour to Australia and New Zealand, I got commitments from Reuters, PA, Agence France Presse, Daily Express, Daily. I was all a special correspondent and Daily Telegraph. So it was great because I could give myself a most wonderful write-up when I did well. But I didn't mention myself if I didn't do very well. But so it was as a result of that small amount of journalism that I found our first patron for women's cricket, which was Sir Jack Hayward, who actually owned Wolverhampton Wanderers Football Club. You know, we are out there somewhere. And it was, thank you, the 2 Wolves fans in the same place at the same time. And Sir Jack Hayward came from Wolverhampton. He agreed to sponsor the England women's cricket team. And I said, well, why? And he said, well, I love women and I love cricket, but I've been reading about you in the Daily Telegraph. So in a small way, that sort of got us on the pathway to slightly better coverage. But I must congratulate the England and Wales Cricket Board because they took on women's cricket as part of cricket from playground to test arena. And Charlotte Edwards is here tonight, delighted to see her, or almost see her out there, the most successful captain that England have had for decades and decades. But they have become part of the whole communications panoply there. They get the sponsorship, they have their standalone sponsorship deal with Kia. So it just shows that getting that behind you can give you the profile. And now people, they love the England women's cricket team. They see them on Sky every summer, which is great.
So there's a message to everybody. If they're not writing about your sport, you just write about your
Yeah,
sport.
just do it.
just do it. Sue, where's my roving reporter, Sue Mott? Somebody from media, Sue.
Yes, well, exactly. I'm a bit worried about the idea that everybody in this room is now going to be a journalist. Let me talk to Simon Green from BT Sport, because Lizzy made the very good point that, you know, in some ways women's sport is an untapped resource for the media. But to be fair, Simon, you've been tapping away at BT Sport like mad, haven't you?
Well, yeah, well, I'm a busybody out at BT Sport. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. But I've definitely seen a change in the media coverage of sport, particularly television, over the last few years. I don't know when it started. I don't know why it really got going, but there is a proper momentum now. I mean, if you look at what has happened over the last, even in the last year, the England rugby union team winning the World Cup live on Sky. You had to finish to the WSL football season live on BT Sport, which was one of the most memorable days in football in this country for a long time, for the quality of the actual finish to the league. And then this summer, I can never remember a time when an England football team, a women's England football team, when the squad was announced, and it was a story in the press, a proper story in the press, and the coverage that the BBC will provide for the tournament, I hope, will raise the profile of women in sport even further. So I really do think that there are real material changes happening at the moment, and long may it continue.
Thanks very much. Back to you, Alice.
Thank you, Simon. Now, one thing that we keep talking about in our house anyway is this sort of the circle of all these things, the media, the role models and the funding. They are all inextricably linked, and funding is the next topic that I wanted to ask our panellists about. First, starting with, do you have funding? I have no idea. You do have funding. You have, is that Olympic? Is that
UK sport funding,
UK
world-class
sport funding.
programme.
So you're able to be a full-time professional athlete?
I'm in full-time education, but yeah.
You're so young.
Yeah. Yeah, it gives me the ability to train as often as I need to and get everything else sorted as well.
Now, Nicole, how did funding work for you? Was that commercial?
There was the National Lottery funding also came on board during my cycling years.
So you didn't have to work while you were cycling?
No, that's right, yes.
And I presume, Lizzy, the same for you, because you were funded by lottery funding?
Yeah, I'm full-time now. I've been full-time for 3 years. There was a point when I was working and training at the same time, but yeah, we are really, really well funded by UK Sport, but that being said, more commercial sponsorship wouldn't go amiss, would it?
No. Rachel, I presume you had no money, you bought your own kit and did all of that, didn't you?
Absolutely, yeah. We were just true Corinthian amateurs, and oh God, doesn't it make you think we were wonderful? But but we used to, we paid our own travelling expenses. I actually got one cricket bat given to me once, eventually, but I couldn't tell we had one part-time secretary who ran the WCA, that's Women's Cricket Association, not the Water Closet Association, and I was told off when we eventually played at Lord's and walked across the pitch to go and practice, or not across the pitch or the wicket, and I'd got some Adidas cricket shoes, 3 white stripes, and a message came to me from our secretariat, please would I whiten out the 3 stripes on my cricket shoes, because it was advertising, tut-tut. I mean, I remember I was given the brief to go out and raise sponsorship for women's cricket, and again, it was very difficult without the sort of PowerPoint presentation or anything like that, and I actually got very great interest from the London Rubber Company, who, apart from making marigold gloves, also made things that you never talked about in those days. So you can imagine, I go into our executive committee meeting, I say, oh girls, it's wonderful, we've got the London Rubber Company, and then when they'd all recovered from their faint, they said, we don't think it's quite appropriate. So, and in a month's time, LRC sponsored Formula 1 racing, so we did miss out on quite a lot of useful products there, I reckon.
But you see, there is a difference, I think, between funding and sponsorship, because recently I know the England football and cricket and rugby have all been funded in that they can have a salary and play if they're selected. However, that is a very low-level salary, and I think quite a few of them had the dilemma of whether you take that salary and actually take a salary cut. If you're a teacher or whatever, you have to make that decision. Well, for 5 years, am I going to be outside teaching, earn less than I would have done as a teacher, and then my career's over and I have to go back into teaching at a lower level? In other words, you actually lose quite a lot of money by accepting. And obviously sponsorship is a different... Are you allowed to be... Are you sponsored? Any of you sponsored?
I have a food sponsor.
You do have a food sponsor?
Yep.
Do they just give you food?
Oh yeah, she sends me out... So yeah, it's paleo now, and she sends me out meals, because obviously I have to manage my nutrition and everything, right. So she sends me meals and stuff. Oh. Chicken, sweet potatoes. Basically, she's got her menu, and whatever I want, I order, and then she sends it. And then...
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
And do you do something in return for that? Do you wear a T-shirt or just talk?
She didn't send me a T-shirt, yeah. But if I'm enjoying my meal, I'll take a nice post and post it on Twitter or Instagram and just be like, this meal's amazing. But it is actually nice. And it has given me, like, the energy that I get from those meals do really help my training. So if I'm lifting the big weights and that food is helping, it helps her as well.
So that's a win-win. Good.
Yeah.
Right. Nicole, do you have any...
So
did you?
When I was racing, it was usually a contract with a professional cycling team, well below the minimum wage. There's no minimum wage for cycling teams for women. There are for men.
And compared to the men, presumably that was a much lower.
Well, it was much less, but I think the big message from the world governing body for cycling is that there are minimum wages for men professionals, there are minimum wages in place for under 23 men, and yet not for women. And so, it's one of the things that I would like to see change right now, in bringing a professionalism to women's cycling that then gives a credibility. Because the flip side is that there are the contracts with the riders, but when the teams don't pay, what does the world governing body do? And the world governing body did nothing. So the riders are then very vulnerable in that situation. I had sponsors beyond my cycling team, so it wasn't all dependent on that. But it is a very precarious position that athletes are put in with those sort of decisions that they're taking about their careers and their future.
Lizzy, have you got a food contact?
I don't yet. Could I have
No
her
one's
number?
sending
She
you
sounds
meals?
great. Yeah.
I think
No, I do have a few sponsors, and it's been a really interesting journey over the past year, because you kind of had this, you know, what you think you might be able to achieve once you've medalled at an Olympics. And yeah, I have got a few sponsors, which is great. But a few weeks ago, we had the Sports Industry Awards, and my manager and I, Louise, were up for the best management of a sports person, and we won, which was amazing because it was up against it was a male rugby player, male cricketer, a golfer, and Jose Mourinho. So I mean, so I thought. So yeah, just the fact that we had the presence in that moment, we held that position, people were taking us seriously, and so I think even though I don't have tons of sponsorship or anything at the moment, it's what it meant to us and what it means for the future, so I was really proud of that.
Good. Sue, you found someone who's promised to fund women's sport for millions, haven't you? It's sitting right there somewhere.
I now have to gallivant across to table 12, so bear with me while I do it. But I'm going to be talking to Tom Kingsley, who is the Director of Sport and Sponsorship at EY, and he's going to tell us all about being the only man, hello Sally, in a room full of 40 women. And how intimidating was that?
Thanks very much. Sue's referring to an event that we hosted recently for women in football, and I know some of the people were here. It was a great event, and yes, I was the only man in the village for that particular one. So, but I think just in terms of corporate investment into women's sport, I mean, I posed the question earlier on Twitter actually. Why wouldn't you invest in women's sport? I work obviously for an accounting firm, so it's all about numbers. I'm just going to put some numbers out there. The World Economic Forum last year said that if we don't do anything, there's going to be a gender inequality globally until 2095. So I'm just going to leave that out there. 80 more years of gender inequality. But the role that sport has to play in closing that gender gap, and you think about the importance of diversity in the workplace, in the economy, and so forth. Research study after research study points to the fact that a more diverse workforce, a more diverse leadership team in your business equals a better performing business. It's a bit of a no-brainer, really. And the role that sport plays in that is, we recently did a survey of 400 female business leaders around the world. And what did that tell us? It told us we wanted to ask them about their role in sport. 94% of them actively participate in sport. That's an interesting number in itself, but I think the more critical number is that 2/3 of them pointed directly to their background in playing elite sport in their success of them as a business leader. And that is the link between sport and business, and the role that sport has to play in helping to fast forward the closure of that gap globally. So we set up the Women's Athlete Business Network, which has been a tremendous success so far, and we are up for an award tonight, so fingers crossed. But more than that, we're trying to sort of live that as well as simply connect women athletes with women business. So we're very proud that Kate Richardson-Walsh is an employee of EY alongside her training, and we're also really proud that we've signed up Katie McLean to be our official ambassador to help us activate Rugby World Cup and our sponsor for Rugby World Cup. So we're doing a bit, but however, the simple answer to why should corporates fund women's sport, be more investing, you know, there's three major businesses here: Investec, there's Newton, and there's Kia, and they've all invested solely in women's sport. And most people in this room will be aware that less than 0.5% of sponsorship money in this country goes into women's sport. So you just look at the return on investment that those 3 businesses have got from their investment in women's sport. That is simply a no-brainer. You should invest in women's sport, because from a business perspective, now is the time to do it. You can buy low and sell high.
Yeah.
Well,
Brilliant.
what a fantastic line that
Thank you. Thank you very much. And please could you thank our wonderful panel. Really enjoyed your contributions.